Hi, John. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Doug? Good to see you.
Great. It's good to see you. I think the last time we saw each other was on a panel discussion where we were live and face to face.
Right before everything changed.
That's right. I think it's fair to say that we are facing unprecedented times, and most of us are probably in about our 13th week of our new work from home reality. And while some states are beginning to open up, I think it's fair to say that a return to normal is going to be anything but normal. So what has Discovery seen? What are you seeing with your clients, with your organization in terms of the impacts of the coronavirus?
Being a 19-channel programmer in the United States and many more channels around the globe, we feel fortunate in that our content still makes it through to over 1 billion households globally. And in the United States, with everybody being home for 3 months, with sports not being on television for 3 months, and with us not being a sports programmer and being more a lifestyle programmer, we've seen our content become more relevant, more useful, and more inspirational during this time. On the other side of the coin, the advertisers have struggled with staying in normal cadence with their advertising. So we've seen a loss of advertisers. Early on, it was worse. It's gotten better as the months have gone by. We've seen more companies coming back in. Um, but early on, it was cancellations by the hour, no questions asked.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see the disparity in the categories. Certainly, obviously, travel, tourism, quick service restaurants, automotive have been disproportionately impacted. Where technology, pharmaceutical, and even CPG have been less impacted. And in some respects, those categories are thriving a bit. So a real disparity in terms of how advertisers are actually engaging with video and with advertising. If we look at the consumer trends, I think that's also really interesting in terms of what's been going on, really over the last couple of years. But we've seen, kind of year over year, a decline in linear television, somewhere between 15 and 20% viewing. But since the coronavirus, with people being at home, we've literally seen a reverse of that, and just massive bumps in viewership really across the board. We're seeing, streaming platforms are up almost 2x versus a year ago. And I think while we expect to see a little bit of a return to normal, if you will, or normalization of the ratings in linear television, you guys are sort of bucking the trend a little bit. While we're seeing sort of a leveling out of certainly news on television and linear ratings, Discovery seems to be, continuing to maintain some of those higher ratings. And what do you attribute that to?
I think with the country being home, there's only so much they can really do. Two of the things that they can do are home projects and cooking. And we have 5 networks in this company, but for home networks, HGTV, DIY, Magnolia, that are mostly home networks, and Food Network and Cooking Channel that are mostly or all food. So as the country looks around the house and says, I'm home, I'm working from home, I have more time on my hands, where do I go to get content, whether it's television, digital, streaming, that can help me, inspire me to be able to do things that I want to do around the house for my family? And we show up high on people's lists of content.
Yeah, I think you hit on two of the things that I've been doubling down on here, certainly, which is we're cooking a lot and looking for new recipes and inspiration. There's only so many times you could cook chicken before it starts to seem like the same old, and obviously the household renovations as well. When you look at what's going on with marketers, and we were talking about that just a little bit ago, we talked about a number of marketers actually pulling their dollars, exercising their cancellation options. One of the areas, though, that we're seeing, kind of not as much pullback and to some extent an increase in spend is in things like advanced TV or nonlinear streaming television. We're seeing more and more clients really looking to leverage the data that they have, move to audience strategies in those channels. But I think predominantly because of the limited waste that may be associated with those platforms, and also the ability to measure more accurately a return on investment. You guys have started to really jump into that, but how have you seen your business, in particular in the last few weeks, respond to those pivots that marketers may be making to follow those consumer behaviors into those streaming channels and to look for more accountability in their spend.
The platform that we scale the most that's direct to consumer is our streaming apps. Each of our channels has a complementary streaming app, and these apps have the entire libraries of those channels available on them. And they're all ad supported and they're all free if you're an authenticated cable customer. So we've seen audiences flocking to our streaming apps 40–50% ahead, which is indicative of all the streaming. If you look at Netflix's numbers or you look at Amazon's numbers, Disney Plus, maybe to a lesser degree, the audience is finding options on the streaming side of the world, and they're spending a lot more time over there than they normally would. And I think for us as a programmer with a deep library of IP, if both of these companies, Discovery and Scripps, which we acquired in 2018, believed in owning its content. So now that left us with 100,000 episodes of television that we can now serve up directly to consumers. And the advertisers see the value, sometimes through programmatic channels, they see the value in buying into the first party data, the targeted customer base, and being able to do that at scale. So our sales on our Go platform are actually going to be positive year over year in second quarter, while sales overall for television are projected to be down possibly in the 20s.
So is that because they are able to use that data and to be more precise in their targeting and therefore maybe minimize some of the waste, or is it because of the ability to measure more effectively the impact of that spending?
I think it's the precision that they are able to buy into custom segments. They can buy into dedicated shows and channels, or they can aggregate our content through third parties with other publishers that have households that are of similar profile.
Mm-hmm. And as you think about the content, is it the same content that's running across all those different platforms, or are you producing and being more agile in terms of the content that you're producing on your streaming platforms versus your more traditional distributed platforms?
Well, Doug, what we do is we have what we call our pre-premiere strategy. So if there's a cliffhanger episode of one of our hit shows, rather than having to wait a week, you might be able to see it the same night. You may be able to see it a week ahead. So if we end an episode with a cliffhanger, we may prompt the audience to say, now go to TLC Go to watch next week's episode. And that's a way to get more people involved early on, and it's a way to reward those who watch us on our apps. And by doing that, we're seeing an increase in usage of the apps, and we're seeing younger people. I think the big difference, one of the things that you like to talk about, Doug, is the reach extension of the direct-to-consumer platforms. And the same piece of content might have a median age of 55 in linear and a median age of 42 on a streaming service. It's just the nature of the people who like that connectivity, like smart apps. They're not necessarily any more downscale. In fact, in some cases, they're more upscale. But it's a great opportunity for advertisers to extend the reach of a linear schedule into the younger viewership.
I think that, you're absolutely right. That's something that I think, we've been trying to communicate to clients for a couple of years now, which is it's not an either or. It's not we want to shift dollars, from linear television, whole stop over into nonlinear channels. It's a matter of how do we leverage the power of and what is the complementary capabilities that some of these more advanced platforms or streaming platforms are allowing us to do. We're seeing the continuation of the erosion of rating points. And what that means is if clients are continuing to expect to buy 300 GRPs a week, and they're going to do that in the same linear channels and programs that they've done it over the last couple of years, they're going to be reducing the potential reach of the audience they want to achieve and increase the overall frequency. And so the only way to continue to drive household penetration, which we've seen over and over again, that is the path to growth, is by looking for those consumers that may have left linear television or are lighter linear television viewers. And we can use digital channels and we can use data as a means to be able to carve those audiences out and add the complementary capabilities to a traditional buy.
But as a company, we're firm believers in the AVOD model. Mm-hmm. Everything we've done to date in streaming has been AVOD on our authenticated apps. Um, my view of it is that around 20 or 25% of the viewership nationally goes to streaming services, but the big three right now, Netflix, Amazon, Disney Plus, not an ad to be had.
Mhm.
So we're seeing 25% of the viewership shifting to a platform that really only carries about 5% of the advertising.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Discovery being more of a female-based programmer, we have three of the most dominant female channels in television right now in HGTV, Food Network, and TLC, that we think there's going to be a shortage of ad-supported impressions for upscale female viewers, because those are the viewers that are moving over to streaming services more frequently, and they're watching scripted product on streaming with no ads. So when it comes to the ad-supported side, in linear, there's a shortage. We tend to stand out. But when we make a bigger move into streaming with this 100,000 episode library and these really passionate brands and fans, we think we'll also maintain a very high share of that audience on both sides.
So I wonder, we're seeing sort of the behavior shift in consumers to different platforms. We're seeing a moment right now where marketers are recognizing the value of precision at scale and the ability to measure, and we're seeing more of the opportunity to complement schedules, with different types of nonlinear platforms. Do we think that this moment, that we're going through, which is accelerating so many different things, it's accelerating how we think about work from home. It's accelerating, how we think about collaborating, with different teams from different time zones. Do we think that the COVID-19 situation is going to accelerate some of the evolutions that we've been talking about for a couple of years, or will it just continue to evolve as it has been, but it won't have the serious uptick that we might expect or we would like to see happen?
I think we're gonna learn from this that it's harder and harder to put lots of commercials into television shows.
Mm-hmm.
Sports is an exception because of the natural breaks, not hockey or soccer, but just about everything else. And I think what the industry is learning is less is more. Mm-hmm. And as partners, Doug, you and Discovery, we have to come up with experiences for consumers with less advertising and maybe different forms of advertising, more storytelling, more branded entertainment. And if you see the way the advertising has evolved during the crisis, I'm proud of how our industry has been so nimble with all the production companies shut down, both on the commercial side and on the long form content side. We've been able to be resourceful with B-roll and iPhone shot footage. We sent gear to every one of our on-air talent and asked them all to shoot at home. And what we got out of that was 300 episodes of home shot programming with people like Joanna Gaines and Guy Fieri and Oprah Winfrey. And what we've learned from that is that you don't need to have the 50-person crew and all the Hollywood lighting and everything to be able to make a successful television show. People appreciate the intimacy. I mean, just as you and I are speaking to each other from our homes, mm-hmm. That's become more of the norm. And because the people who host our shows at Discovery, they do what they do for a living, what they do on TV. So it's a lot easier for a Bobby Flay to get into his kitchen in the Hamptons and cook on television and feel relaxed. And he's more engaging at home. And people are saying, we're enjoying this kind of programming, and they're enjoying the advertising as well, because the advertising is of the moment. It reflects the mood of the country. So I think both sides, your side and our side, have really adapted well.
So it sounds like you feel like you're pretty sort of pandemic proof, if you will, in terms of the production and the ability to have fresh content through the end of the year.
We do. We shoot typically 4 to 6 months ahead. So we walked into this 4 months ago, we walked into this with the thought in mind that if we could stay the course and be competitive every night with fresh content, that's how it's playing out. And the surprise to us was the ability to make so much content during quarantine, which I think will extend us even further. And when the production companies go back, a lot of them work mostly just for us. A lot of the lifestyle production companies are close to 100% employed by Discovery shows, and our talent they're very dedicated and loyal to us. So I think we'll be able to get back into the marketplace with new episodes. We think of ourselves as being one of the most stable programmers to invest in during this upfront season because of our ability to stay consistent through this crisis and then after.
Well, I think having relevant and highly rated content and programming is going to be critically important.